Tottenham can beat Arsenal tomorrow to win the North London derby and claim bragging rights in North London. Here is how. In this video, we're going to do a tactical breakdown of how Spurs beat a weakened Arsenal side with no Declan Rice and no Martin Odegaard. Make sure to like the stream and make sure to subscribe to the channel for more Tottenham Hotspur content. There will be a match breakdown on my channel live on Monday after the game as well. So let's get straight into it. This is the team that I would personally play for Spurs tomorrow. It's bold, it's attacking, it's exciting, but I think we've got to go for it. I do think we've got to show that bravery to take the game to Arsenal, a weakened Arsenal team without key players. We're going to talk about the absences of Declan Rice and Martin Odegaard and how it will actually hurt them. I think it's more of a leadership thing rather than what they will bring on the pitch. I think they can replace what those players can do. Maybe not Odegaard so much, but definitely Declan Rice. Declan Rice hasn't had exactly the best start to the season and he's kind of getting up to that level of sharpness. I don't think Rice at this point in the season is a huge, huge miss for Arsenal, but I think that leadership is going to be really important. Obviously, no Odegaard. He does lead that team on the pitch for them. I think that is going to be the bigger miss rather than what they will actually bring to the game. And that is what Spurs have to capitalise on. And it's about winning that midfield battle. We're going to talk about how Arsenal will set up and how I think they will without the likes of Rice and Odegaard. Like I said, I think Spurs have got to be brave in this game. I think Tottenham have got to really take this game to Arsenal, and I think there's many ways in which we can hurt them. High turnovers being one of them, actually having a focal point now to be able to occupy Saliba and Gabriel, and Solanke's pressing to win that ball back I think is going to be massive, so hopefully he does start. Look, again, with team news, quickly just run through it. We know the absences for Arsenal. Calafiori is also likely to be out of the game, so I think it'll be Timber at left back for them. And obviously Rice and Odegaard for Spurs. We've got Van der Ven and we've got Solanke back, which is absolutely massive for Spurs. But Yves Bissouma, I've not put him in my starting 11 just because I'm going to do this on the basis that he doesn't get through and play. I think if he does play, it will be massive for Spurs. But I think Rodrigo Bentancur, prior to his ban, which looks like it's coming, I think he can do a job for Tottenham in that midfield three tomorrow. What have Tottenham learned from the game at home last season, and what can we bring into this one? Hopefully, a lot. I think it's a massive run. It's a massive couple of games for Tottenham. Obviously, coming off the back of that Newcastle result, to have Newcastle and Arsenal back to back, Newcastle away and Arsenal at home, just like we did last season when we went on that poor run, shows how far we can come. Obviously, we lost to Newcastle last week, but there were some really positive signs in that game and signs of improvement from last year, and that's what I want to see in this game because we played well against Arsenal last year. It was set pieces and the ability to defend transition that let us down. And that is what we've got to really, really get a stranglehold of tomorrow to win this game. But like I said, I think taking the brave approach and taking the game to Arsenal is the way to go. That's why, obviously, you can see here, I've got Dejan Kulusevski and I've got James Madison in those two number 10 positions. I think a lot of people would look at this and obviously see, or obviously maybe go for someone like Pat Matasar in that number 8. And I hear that 100%. And I part of me thinks that Sarr will probably play. Maybe Bentancur, Sarr and Madison, or Bissouma, Sarr and Madison if he's fit, because he does bring a lot in terms of his pressing ability, also his ability in transition, to defend transition. He didn't start the game from my recollection last year, Pat Matasar, or Bissouma certainly didn't start. I think it was Bentancur, Højbjerg and Madison, which did not work for Spurs at all, did not work. So I think he probably will go with Sarr in there. But the reason I want to go with Kulusevski and Madison is because I think that ability to win the ball back high up the pitch is going to be absolutely huge. Kulusevski, I think, maybe behind Solanke, and we haven't obviously really seen it yet from him, is our best presser, our hardest worker in the final third. And I think they need to target Partey. They really need to go after Partey. It remains to be seen how Arsenal will set up, but if they do go with that double pivot of Partey and Jorginho, Arsenal fans are nervous about that. I think Jorginho would actually be more key for them than I think some Arsenal fans think. I think Jorginho can hurt Spurs tomorrow, and we'll come on to that a little bit later. And you guys let me know your thoughts in the chat as well. But I think Partey is the one you go after. And if you've got Kulusevski in there nipping at his heels, I think it's really important to have him centrally to do that in terms of his physical ability as well in transition and being able to body players and win the ball back and get his head up and make something happen with that. You know, the quartet at times with Madison, Son, Solanke and Johnson ahead of him when Spurs do win the ball back high up the pitch. I think that's going to be really key. I really need James Madison to get on the ball and have a good game tomorrow. There are little excuses for him to show up because you've got no Rice, you've got no Odegaard. Two big players missing in that midfield. Arsenal have got to change it. Madison has to get a grip of that game like he did at the Emirates last year and be influential and make something happen. Let's go to the chat quickly before we come on to some more points. A lot of people saying about Bentancur in the chat. Bentancur isn't banned yet. I think he'll be able to play tomorrow. I think his Spurs have got until next Thursday to appeal the charge, which I don't think they will. But I don't think his ban has taken effect yet. Obviously, his ban hasn't actually come into play yet. We haven't been confirmed that he is definitely going to be banned. We think he will, but I don't think he's gonna. I don't think he's gonna come. I don't think he's gonna come into play yet. So I think if Bentancur, is available. So that's essentially what I'm saying. So. Surrender says we were heavily dominant in the last North London derby. We were. We absolutely were. Obviously, Spurs have had a lot of possession so far this season, and we haven't quite made it count. But that's why Solanke being back is a massive, massive factor. Just someone to be able to actually occupy the two centre-halves. And if you look at the game last year where we played home and away, obviously we played with Sonny up front away at the Emirates and played with Sonny up front at home. Obviously, Sonny bagged 2 goals in the away fixture and obviously got a penalty, scored from the penalty spot in the home game. Obviously, he was in those games, but I think actually having a physical presence, it didn't matter so much at the Emirates where we were playing on transition a little bit more and Sonny just had those chances in the box. Obviously, one of the goals that he scored was fortunate, not fortunate from his point of view because he took it well, but Spurs were able to win the ball back off of Jorginho and kind of turn the ball over and Madison was able to slide it through to Son. Again, the incentive for Arsenal in that game was to have possession. In this game, I think they will allow Spurs to have possession, so there won't be as many clear-cut opportunities probably for Sonny if he was playing down the middle in this game. So I think Solanke, for his physical presence, his pressing ability, his ability to get at the heels of the centre-backs and try and win it back and actually just give some Spurs some form of some form of shape to the attack, I think is going to be absolutely huge for Tottenham tomorrow. And it's such a big plus that he's back. Van der Ven, obviously huge as well in terms of being able to defend transition. And we'll come on and talk about that. But I would go for Kulusevski and Madison. I think we've got to be brave and I think we've got to overwhelm them. And like I said, Kulu in the middle to swarm and overwhelm Partey is why I think Spurs could win this game tomorrow if we do play like this. Ben says there, Son had 14 touches or something at the Emirates. It's just what he did with them, and he's not going to be able to have those similar opportunities tomorrow. So I think Solanke is such a big factor. Kulu could win us a penalty again. Again, if he makes it physical, gets tight to players, he probably could have had a penalty in the game last year, and obviously Arsenal went up the other end and scored from that. I just think his presence is going to be really, really important. Arsenal have a focal point as well to be worried about with Dominic Solanke, which they haven't had in the last 2 North London derbies. So I think Solanke's return is huge. Also, let's talk about Declan Rice for Arsenal. I want to talk about Rice because I don't think the loss of Rice is as huge as it's being made out in terms of his ability in this game. I think it's more about leadership. His passing numbers are actually down on last season, obviously playing in that left-hand side in number 8 role rather than as that 6. On the left of a midfield 3. His defensive numbers are down as well. I think Rice has had quite a slow start to the season. I think he actually did an interview away on England duty after he scored the goal against Ireland, saying that was the sharpest I felt. I felt like I was back in that game. So, I think it would have been a big miss in terms of his ability to be ready for this game. But I think it's about that leadership. And I think it's the same with Odegaard as well. The way Arsenal hurt us last year at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium wasn't... Those 2 players weren't particularly influential. Obviously, Declan Rice took both of the corners that we conceded from, and we'll come on and talk about set pieces. But they will be able to find that quality elsewhere, whether it's Bukayo Saka, whether it's maybe Trossard, whether it's Jorginho potentially as well. Obviously, those small percentages are a big factor. Rice's delivery is very good, but they can find that quality elsewhere. But I think it's more about the leadership. I do think that is a big thing. And that's why I said I want Tottenham to overwhelm them and swarm them in midfield. And I actually think in this game that if Spurs don't have Bissouma, I think Bissouma is massive for Spurs a lot of the time anyway. Like he is huge. But I don't think we're going to rely on him so much defensively in this game because I think Arsenal are going to sit deep. I think they're going to sit as deep as possible and make it difficult for Spurs. I actually think there's a good chance that they almost set up a little bit like this and tuck into a back 3 and have White, Saliba and Gabriel as a back 3. If we move Spurs up the pitch in a second and almost play it as a 3-3-3-1 almost and actually have Timber to invert into midfield to make it as compact as possible. And that means that when they do win the ball back, they can spring forward and hurt us on transition. Obviously, Havertz's physical presence, you're going to get him dropping back in there as well. If they do play with Trossard through the middle, I think his on-the-ball ability is good in tight spaces, so I think they might do that to replace Odegaard. Havertz can drop in as well. Trossard is good in transition. I think that is kind of how they'll set up and try and compact the midfield as much as possible, with Timber stepping in there and inverting. Horsebox there says Arteta hasn't ruled Odegaard out yet. I do think that's kind of just mind games. I did think that. I did notice that. But I do think Odegaard probably won't play. Like I said, Timber inverted into that 3-3-3-1 shape shores up that midfield a bit. Arsenal will try and make it as compact as possible. And I think there's been some chat in the comments here about Brennan Johnson. That's why I think Spurs should potentially start with Johnson. I know he's better off the bench. I understand that. I just think you could also bring in Odegaard to play on that right-hand side instead of Brennan Johnson. But I do think if we just move Spurs up the pitch here and get everyone up and playing in their half. Obviously, this is very, very compact, but Arsenal are going to try and do this. I do think if Arsenal are going to make it as compact as possible in there, Spurs have to rely on high turnovers to win the ball back, and that's why I think Kulusevski is going to be really important in there, and Solanke as well. If we chuck a ball into the mix here, it's obviously going to be very compact around these areas. If Spurs are able to catch Arsenal trying to play out and break Spurs' press here and win the ball back, I think you're in a much better position with Arsenal being narrow, not having the time to react, of allowing Johnson to get in behind here. Sterling's defensive work rate isn't always necessarily the best. Saka, you're going to get that down this side. But if Spurs are able to turn the ball over in this kind of area, this compact centre of the pitch, whether it's Solanke, whether it's Madison in this position, you've got someone in James Madison who has got the eye to get that ball into Brennan Johnson, into where is it? Sorry, there we go. Where's the arrow? That's what we need. To get the ball into this space as quick as possible that Johnson is able to dart into, and then you've got Solanke, then you've got Kulusevski coming in the box for a cross, which we know Johnson thrives in these kind of positions when he is able to get in behind and exploit the space and exploit the gap that might be left by Timber inverting. If Spurs are able to win the ball back, like I said, it's going to be about higher turnovers for Tottenham and trying to win the ball back as much as possible and as high as possible in the Arsenal final third. It's going to be really compact. It's going to be really, really tight. I think also that might mean as well you're going to see more overlapping runs from the likes of Pedro Porro and Destiny Udogie as well, trying to get on the outside of their winger. And I think their roles are going to be really important as well tomorrow. I think they also might be instructed to stay that little bit wider defensively as well, kind of going the other way. Because again, where Arsenal will try and hurt Spurs is on transition. And if we just give Arsenal the ball here, this is why I think Jorginho might actually be key. Because when Arsenal are building out, say if they're able to nullify and stop a Spurs attack, if we go here and go to the goals that we conceded last year, bear with me one sec. Obviously, with set pieces, which we'll come on to talk about, Arsenal were able to hurt us with that space in behind. And I think that is what they'll be kind of licking their lips at again. Because Spurs, like I said, I think they will be trying to be brave and they will commit men. Ange has said that kind of coming into this game. We're not going to rest on our laurels. We're not going to change anything. We don't want our players to be more up for it because it's a derby. We're going to take this approach as we do to other games. So why I think Jorginho could be quite important for Spurs, and I think for Arsenal, sorry, and I think why Arsenal fans are maybe not quite giving Jorginho the credit that he maybe deserves. I think they worry about his on-the-ball ability and they worry about him playing in these tight spaces under pressure. And I do understand that totally. I do get that. But if Jorginho is allowed that space and Arsenal are able to turn the ball over and you've got Sterling or Martinelli on that left-hand side, I think Sterling will play. If Arsenal are able to win the ball back here, I'm pretty sure Jorginho is going to be a key man for them. If I take this back to the board, sorry. So in these kind of areas, if Arsenal are able to win the ball back, I apologise, I realised I didn't show you that. I was just showing you the screenshot of the Arsenal goal they scored against us last season. Jorginho is very good at when he's allowed a bit of time on the ball and space. If they are able to win the ball back off of us, he's good at hitting these balls. Oh, I always get that the wrong way around. In behind, over the top for the likes of Sterling. Oh, done it again there. or Saka to run into. And I think that's why Jorginho will be quite key for them. I'm pretty sure he had their most passes into the final third per 90 last season. He's able to get the ball over the top and in behind defences, and they will try and exploit the high line that Tottenham do play. So I think Jorginho could actually be key for that. And without Rice and with Jorginho, they will try and rely on transitions more, which is why I think Martinelli or Sterling will 100% play on that left-hand side rather than playing Havertz as that focal point. Dropping Havertz back into midfield or dropping Trossard back into midfield, it allows them to play Sterling or Martinelli on the left rather than Trossard. And I think that space in behind will be really important for Arsenal and something they will look to try and exploit. The one thing to counteract that is the fact that Spurs, if you look back to the goal that we conceded last year, I mean, this is a bit of a mess from a defensive point of view, obviously, for Spurs. It's one ball over the top and Saka's in behind and we all know what happens. Obviously, the good thing for Tottenham is that rather than it being Ben Davies playing at left back, it's going to be Destiny Udogie. And Destiny Udogie is going to be a key player for Spurs in this game because I think he's better in that physical battle with Bukayo Saka. I think he's more likely to rough him up a little bit, which is what you need in these derby games. Obviously, Destiny Udogie had quite a tough time in the reverse fixture at the Emirates. For that first 20 minutes, Saka kind of did have him on toast. Obviously, Udogie was new to the Premier League, wide-eyed to it at that point, had a lot to learn. But he got the better of Saka in that game for large parts after Spurs, as a team, got through that tough period. He managed him quite well in terms of that one-on-one defending. Also, Udogie's defensive ability in transition, that bit more pace, that bit more strength than Ben Davies, I think is going to be really key to nullify the threat of Saka as much as possible. Look, Bukayo Saka is an excellent player, right? And will hurt Tottenham tomorrow. But I think Destiny Udogie playing rather than Ben Davies gives you a much better chance to keep the ball out of the back of the net and keep Saka out of the game as much as possible. So I do think he's going to be key. Matthew Coppola says, Biss possibly missing Hurts right there. He would bully Jorginho, agree on Sterling. Yeah, I do think that. But again, I think, Bissouma is so good at winning the ball back high up the pitch for us. But Bentancur also does bring you that as well. What Bentancur might not give you in transition that Bissouma does. Obviously, Bissouma has that strength, and you want these big players available for your derby games. Bissouma bullied that Arsenal midfield at the Emirates. Jorginho played in that. Declan Rice didn't play in that second half. I hope Bissouma does play, but I am also fine if it's Bentancur. I think Bentancur is so good at winning the ball back high up the pitch, getting involved, committing. But I do think it might leave Spurs that little bit more vulnerable because obviously I think Bentancur is naturally going to want to press that little bit higher than someone like Bissouma would. Eldo Eagle says, time for Solanke to get his first Premier League goal against Arsenal. Like I said, I think having Solanke back is absolutely massive for Tottenham. Just because he's got that focal point, he's got that coolness, he's got that calmness, he's got that poise in front of goal, and he's going to be coming back into this game with a point to prove. Look, you can break this game down and preview this game tactically as much as you want, right? And that's what we're going to do and have done already in this stream. But I also want to talk about the fact that, you know, the kind of emotional side of this game, right? This is such a big game so early into the season. I was on TalkSport last night, which was a massive opportunity with Alex Moneypenny. So thank you, TalkSport, for that. It was great to go and do that. And I spoke about the game on there. And I said that this is really, really big for Arsenal. There was a lot at stake. There isn't quite as much at stake for Tottenham. But Spurs have got to smell fear in this game. They've got to go and put a marker down on Arsenal in this game without those key players missing. And like I come back to it, Rice and Odegaard, it's not just about the ability that they lose without those two players on the pitch, because they can hurt Spurs without those two players. It's about that leadership. Spurs have got to smell that blood and get at them and really, really make it difficult. That is why I've gone for this more attacking setup. If we just kind of get everyone back into their positions while I'm talking, I just think going with Kulusevski and Madison sends out a bit of a statement. We've got a blueprint now that it works against teams that are going to want to sit that little bit deeper in more of a low block and try and nullify as much threat as possible by sitting in and making it as compact as possible. Look, Arsenal are a better team than Everton. Spurs tried that against Everton and it worked wonders. You had Sonny playing through the middle, but you had Odegaard on the left-hand side and you had Johnson on the right-hand side, pinning that defence back as much as possible, allowing that space for the likes of Kulusevski and Madison in front of that back four to thrive, to do their thing. And Spurs really hurt them. Again, sitting in against the deeper block, long shots are going to be important. Bissouma showed that against Everton. Pedro Porro has got that in his locker. Obviously, when you think of the goal that got disallowed for Mickey van der Ven in this fixture last year, it came from Porro having a go. having a go from long range, deflections. These things can happen when Arsenal are sat in so deep. The ball can fall in a way that you might not necessarily expect it. So Spurs have got to take those risks tomorrow. Just go out, Arsenal. I genuinely really believe that. Archie Parker said, why have you not chosen Odegaard? I think Odegaard, I think Johnson, I know people have got it in for Johnson a little bit at the moment, but I just think that Odegaard is obviously very young. He's obviously started the last couple of games for Spurs. I'm not ruling out Odegaard of starting. I'm not at all. But I think Johnson, with the kind of more experience that he's got, and like I said, I think when he gets into those positions, that I think Spurs can really carve out in terms of winning the ball back high up the pitch and Arsenal allowing that bit more space in behind if Timber does invert and Spurs win the ball back high up the pitch. Odegaard can do that and get into those positions, but Johnson is cash money a lot of the time when you win the ball back high up and he's able to get those low crosses in across the box, maybe force an own goal, maybe force a corner, and you retain that pressure. It's not just about scoring from those opportunities, it's about retaining pressure and putting Arsenal under it as much as possible. Spurs were actually able to do that quite a lot in the home fixture last season, and that's why it hurt so much. Spurs had a lot more of the ball. We had the better chances from set pieces and those kind of situations. So we were able to sustain that pressure, but Arsenal just took their chances and were ruthless. Set pieces, again, going to be a big thing for Spurs tomorrow because we got through that pretty much unscathed against Newcastle. Obviously, Newcastle posed us a lot of threat from set pieces last season, so I think it was important to kind of get through that test despite losing the game, and there has been a noticeable difference. In the video that I uploaded on my YouTube channel on Monday, explaining why I think Spurs are better than they were last season. I talked about set pieces. The Extra Inch did some good analysis on why Spurs have become a bit more defensively solid. There has been a notable change. Have Spurs hired a set piece coach, etc.? Those kind of questions kind of cropping up. Look, this defensively from Spurs' point of view last season, defending that was a mess against Arsenal, right? They've got big physical bodies that are going to try and pin Vicario back as much as possible. They're going to try and swing the ball into an area which makes it virtually impossible to defend. And I talked about the loss of Declan Rice. This goal came from a Saka cross. The goal on the other side where Havertz was able to get a free header came from a Declan Rice cross. Spurs, they do defend with a mix of a zonal and man-marking approach. And the difference between now and last season, if you look here, Romero is defending the space. Spurs' best headers of the ball are defending the space. Whereas in the game against Newcastle, and again, shout out to Nathan Clark and the Extra Inch for the analysis that they did on this, they're man-marking the big players that are going to hurt you. Dan Burn there. I want to see Romero on Saliba. I want to see I want to see Van de Ven on Gabriel. I want to see our best headers of the ball man-marking Arsenal's more attacking threats. The problem is that when you look at this team, how many have they got? How many have Arsenal got? They're always going to hurt any team from set pieces. They've got Timber. They've got Gabriel. They've got Saliba. They've got Ben White. They've got Thomas Partey. They've got Kai Havertz. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players there that are all capable of popping up and scoring a goal from a corner, bullying their man, rising above them and scoring and putting pressure on the goalkeeper. It's going to be such a big test for Guillermo Vicario and that Tottenham defence tomorrow, because when we were playing at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium last year and lost that game 3-2, they scored from those two corners. Every time we gave a corner away, it felt like we were giving away a penalty. And I do hope Spurs are kind of moving past that. I really do. But tomorrow is going to be the acid test for that. It is really going to be a tough test for Tottenham. Vannin said refs did us so dirty in both Arsenal games last season. Both, I wouldn't say necessarily in the first game, not from memory. Second game, again, Van de Ven, that offside was just so unfortunate. It really was. It was offside, but the margins are so fine. And again, it's so different. If we go on and equalise in that game, the way we responded, I actually thought was really good. And I think this Tottenham team is actually playing with more confidence than it was at that point last season. Ange spoke about before the game about the players. I don't want them to be more up for this than they would for any other game. But I think naturally, and I understand where he's coming from, because he wants his teams to be at that level every single game, no matter the opposition, because he wants them to be ruthless against the big teams and against the lesser sides. And I understand where he's coming from. But I do think naturally, when you get in the game and a few fouls happen and a few little kind of niggly moments with certain players, feisty characters, Ben White, for example, naturally the players do rise that little bit more. So I think Ange's comments are kind of a little bit redundant in that aspect, although I do see where he's coming from. I think Spurs did respond well to going a goal down. And again, Van de Ven, that goal goes in, and it's a different story. Oh, Nketiah, of course, yeah. Nketiah, yeah. So we shall see. Ben says also seen a suggestion Jesus might start and Havertz moves into midfield. That is a good point. The only thing is I don't know how fit Jesus is. So that is another option for them as well. But I could see it being this. I think it will definitely be Jorginho and Partey. I think Arsenal fans are worried about that. I think we've almost got to prey on that anxiety a little bit. Like I said, I think when I come back to Rice and I come back to Odegaard, the big thing that Tottenham have got to take advantage of isn't necessarily what they lose with those two players in terms of their ability to play. They're fantastic players, but they can replace them to a degree, and they've got the quality on the pitch elsewhere to say, okay, this is how we're going to hurt Tottenham. They didn't need Odegaard to hurt us in transition last year. They didn't need Declan Rice so much to hurt us in transition last year. Obviously, Rice took the set piece that they scored from the third goal, but it's that leadership, and that's why I need players like James Madison to step up big time tomorrow. I think James Madison has had a good start to the season, right? I think he has. And he's been talking in the lead up to this game about how we want to win this game for the fans. We want to bring the bragging rights to North London. Go and show it tomorrow. I'm still waiting for James Madison to have a proper moment in the Spurs shirt. He did that at the Emirates last season. He did grab the game by the scruff of the neck. And I want to see him do that. I want to see him twisting and turning outside of Jorginho. I want to see him pressing these midfielders. Kulusevski's going to help him in that aspect as well. I want to see him playing with his chest out, puffed up, not throwing his arms in the air, going in for battles with Ben White, winning those free kicks, making it really difficult. He's got Solanke to play off now as well, which I think is going to be massive. I feel confident about this game. I genuinely do. I want to hear some score predictions in the chat. Obviously, if anyone's missed this, we did record this live earlier. I do these live before every Premier League game and after every Premier League game as well. And if you want to see those for the Europa League as well, then please let me know in the comments, because I am planning to do them. Ben says, this is the attitude that I want to see. Ben says, let's worry about how we can hurt them, not how they can hurt us. I totally agree. Obviously, in this stream here, in this video, we've broken down how Arsenal can hurt us. But we know that already. Let's focus on what we can do. Let's go and be proactive. Let's get at them. Let's get in their faces, and let's hurt them when we turn the ball over. That's why I want to see Kulusevski in the middle. That's why I want to see Madison playing with him. That's why I want to see Johnson playing that right-hand side for when we are able to turn the ball over and be efficient in those moments. We've got a striker now in Solanke to finish off the chances that we can create when we win the ball back high up the pitch. Like I said earlier in the stream, if Timber inverts to make it more of a 3 in midfield, they will naturally leave that little bit more space out wide for Johnson to dart in behind. I think Porro, like I said, I think could stay a bit wider as well tomorrow. And I think his crossing from those wide areas could be massive when you've got Solanke in the middle. I feel confident. I feel calm. I might not look it, but I'm buzzing to get there tomorrow, to get to White Lane. Let me know in the chat as well if you are going to the game. I will be there. I'm buzzing. I think, look, Spurs, in terms of results, have had a poor start to the season. 1-1, drawn 1, lost 1. Coming into this game off the back of a frustrating result against Newcastle, where we showed a lot of positive signs. Again, I spoke about it in this stream. I spoke about it in a video that I did the other day. Having Newcastle and Arsenal back-to-back, just like we did last season, there were so many good opportunities to right the wrongs of last year. Let's be more ruthless in defending transition. Let's be more ruthless in defending set pieces. And let's be more ruthless when we get the ball into the areas where we can really, really hurt Arsenal. I think there could be goals. I think there could be drama. But there always is in a North London derby. And I think we can come out on top playing this way. Let me know in the comments below a score prediction, like I said. Gary Hunter's gone with 2-1. Ben's gone with 3-2. I think we'll beat Arsenal. And I think it will put down a real marker. Like I said, if we lose to Arsenal, I want to see a really good performance. Look, that might be a loser mentality, but I can live with that. It hurts, obviously, but if we go there, play well, and it doesn't quite come off for us, I will still be positive about where we're going this season. Apparently, Liverpool have just conceded a goal against Nottingham Forest. I'm obviously recording this and streaming this while the 3 p.m. kickoffs are going on, and we've got almost 90 people in here, or 90 people in now, so I'm grateful for anyone that's taken time out of their Saturday to join me in the stream. I hope to see you at the game tomorrow. I hope to be celebrating a Tottenham win after the game tomorrow in a North London derby. I think we've got to go be positive. I think we've got to go and attack it, and I think we will win the game. Make sure to like the video, make sure to subscribe to the channel, and I will see you on Monday to break down, hopefully, a Tottenham Hotspur victory in the North London derby. We cannot let them beat us 3 times in a row at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Make sure to like, make sure to subscribe, and up the Spurs. Come on.